Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany and it's my birthday month, which I have mentioned, so I wanted to do a couple of fun birthday tags this month. This is the birthday book tag, which I originally saw on Cozy Reader Kelly's channel, but the original video is by Always Books, so I'll go ahead and link those down below so you can check them out. So let's dive in. Question number 1 is birthday cake. A book with a plot that seems cliche, but you adore it anyway. For that one, I think this is a newer read, but I'm gonna have to go with Treasure Island. I just read that book in August, and I was so surprised at how much I loved it. And I think part of the reason it feels so cliche is that these are tropes that have been used continuously, but Robert Louis Stevenson was really kind of one of the first people to put all of these what are now cliched storylines about pirates in there. So I don't think it was quite as cliche at the time, but it definitely seems a little cliche now, and I was shocked at how much I absolutely loved it. The next prompt is Party Guest, the most anticipated book release for this year. And for that one, I think I'm gonna go with Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 3 in his Skyward series, which I think is going to have 4 books in it. And I read both book 1 and book 2 this summer and really enjoyed them both. Prompt number 3 is Birthday Presents, a book that surprised you with how much you loved it. For this one, I've got to go with Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I had never read any Russian literature at all and kind of picked up Crime and Punishment on a whim a couple of years ago. This was before I was like on BookTube and talking to people who read a lot of classics, so I'm not even really sure why I decided to pick it up. But it blew me away with how much I loved it, and it was kind of like my gateway into loving Russian literature. Number 4 is Happy Birthday Song, a book that certainly deserved all of the hype that it got. I don't read a ton of recently super hyped books. I kind of a lot of times wait for the dust to settle, so I'm not going with a newer book for this one, but I'm going with Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Oh my word. I loved Mistborn so much. I had never really read very much high fantasy at all. I've read some kind of like low-key fantasy where fantasy is an element, but it's not really a focal point of the plot. So Mistborn was my first introduction into that. Everyone had said how much they loved it. And oftentimes when people talk about how much they love a book and then I go to read it, I don't love it quite so much. And I think that's part of the reason why I now mostly wait for the dust to settle, because then I can kind of hear like both sides of it, and I feel like I kind of am better prepared for the book and don't judge it too harshly based on all the hype that I've heard. But I had never heard anyone say anything negative about Mistborn at all. And then I went ahead and read it, and I have nothing negative to say about Mistborn. About the first Mistborn book and the second Mistborn book. I have nothing negative to say about either of those. I do have some thoughts on book 3, but I think a lot of people do. But overall, like Mistborn, the first book, The Final Empire, was the very first introduction that I had into high fantasy, and so I think of it with a lot of fondness. I think Brandon Sanderson does a really good job at creating very intricate fantasy worlds, but introducing them in such a way that it's not overwhelming, because up to this point, a lot of high fantasy books that I had attempted to read, I either felt like I was dropped right in the middle of this magical world and I had no clue what was going on and I was so confused, or it was introduced so incrementally that I kind of got bored. And I felt like Sanderson hit that sweet spot where that was not the case in either way. So I think that is part of the reason why I truly loved Mistborn, because it felt like the first very accessible high fantasy book that I had ever read. So if high fantasy scares you, Brandon Sanderson is a wonderful place to start, and I would recommend starting with Mistborn, because even though the Mistborn books are not super short, his other very well-known series, the Stormlight Archives, those books are like 1,000 pages or more, and I think they have way more characters and stuff, so I think I haven't even started those yet because they're a little intimidating to me. So if you're intimidated by high fantasy, I think Mistborn is like a very wonderful entry place. Yeah, I just really loved it, and I think it deserved every ounce of hype that it got. Number 5 is Happy Music, a book with some very beautiful and truly memorable quotes. And I think for that one, I might have to say A Gentleman in Moscow. I really loved that book. That was another kind of like hyped book, but I'd actually heard a lot of negative things about that one because a lot of people I knew who had read it aren't really into literary fiction at all, so they didn't enjoy it and the plot was just too slow moving for them. There is kind of a plot there, but it mostly focuses on character development and observations about life and love and all of those kinds of things. And so it had a lot of really beautiful quotes in it, and I really enjoyed reading it. Prompt number 6 is Getting Older, a book you read a long time ago, but you think you would appreciate it more as a more mature reader. I have a couple of thoughts for this one. One is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I read that one in high school and hated it so much. I couldn't understand why people liked it, and I didn't DNF it. I read the whole thing. So that's one that I'm wondering if as an adult, maybe I would like it more. Another one, and this is just an author in general, is Jules Verne. I tried to read, I think it was Around the World in 80 Days, multiple times as like older kid / early teen, and just found it incredibly boring. So it is one that I would like to attempt again at some point. I don't actually have Around the World in 80 Days. I don't own that, but I do have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Journey to the Center of the Earth. My husband, when he was on a trip a couple of years ago with a friend, they listened to a good chunk of the audiobook of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and my husband absolutely loved it. And he's not someone who's really into a whole lot of fiction at all, so that gave me hope that like maybe I would enjoy it. So that's just in general, I would like to try to read some Jules Verne as an adult and see if I enjoy it more. And the last prompt is Sweet Birthday Memories, a book that kept you incredibly happy during a sad and demanding period of your life. So this is kind of a weird pick, but I'm going with the Hunger Games trilogy for this one. When I've read the Hunger Games trilogy a couple of times, and the first time I read it, I had just had my daughter, and so was definitely up all hours of the night. So I would read it when I was up with her nursing or taking care of her or whatever. Like that was kind of what I was doing. At the same time, that's a demanding period in general with a newborn. But at the same time, my husband had lost his job and we thought he had found a new one and it would have required us to move. So I actually quit my job while I was on maternity leave, and then that fell through. And so now we were like looking for new jobs and a new place to live and not even sure where we were supposed to go. So there was a lot of really stressful things happening during that time period. And so the Hunger Games was a wonderful distraction from that. I feel like it's kind of weird to say that the Hunger Games was a book that made me happy because there's a lot of like dark elements to it, but honestly, I really loved those books. And every time I think about like rereading them, I just think about little tiny baby Claire and what a great distraction those books were for me from just the like emotional and physical exhaustion that I was experiencing at that time. Well, this was a very short tag. It was only 7 questions, but it was still fun and I wanted to do it because it was my birthday month and thought it would just be kind of a fun thing to do. I will include all of the prompts in the description of this video, so if you want to do it yourself on your channel if you have one, or if you'd just like to answer the questions in the comments below, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.